What is the weirdest Tinder date that you've been on? Story 1. She just got out of the hospital and a snap blizzard hit February 14th, 2014. The bus dropped her off, but no taxi or Uber dared drive out to get her, so she was stranded at the Waffle House. So I took me and my Jeep Grand Cherokee the 100 miles in the snow to meet for the first time and to save her. I made it 90% of the way, hit some black ice, then slid sideways into a power pole. The guy that lived there pulled out his tractor trailer and pulled me off the pole. I continued my journey as the night is shiny smashed armor. I make it to the Waffle House and pick her up. Her door doesn't open because it was smashed in. She climbs over from the other side, casually brushing aside bits of broken glass from the shattered window. We proceed to drive 25 minutes in the snow while freezing air tossing her post-surgery bedhead hair around. We make casual conversation. We get to her house and I get out so she can climb back over my seat to get out. She thanks me and we part ways. Come to find out my truck's frame was bent and should not have been driven. 4 years later, we're happily married, going through IVF to have a daughter. To be honest, as soon as I got to the part where she casually brushed aside the broken glass and drove in freezing cold with the window down, I said to myself, marry her. And he did. He chose wisely. Good luck with the IVF. I hope everything goes well for him and his wife. That was such a good story. Story 2. I had been on a few dates with a guy I met on Tinder, and things seemed to be going really well. We had common interests. He was funny, smart, attractive, and incredibly kind. One evening, he invited me over to his house, and I agreed. The night started out great. He cooked dinner, we watched a movie, and things started to lead towards the bedroom. Before we got there, he asked if he could show me his favorite room in the house. Somewhat confused, I agreed. He opened a door beside his bedroom, and we walked into a baby nursery. Not just any nursery. A nursery with an adult-sized crib, changing table, diapers, and other stuff. He told me that he was into baby role-playing and would be very happy if I would agree to be his mommy. Don't mistake me, I'm a very open-minded person, but that's not something I would be able to do for him. I rejected and politely excused myself. He messaged me the next day asking if I would reconsider, and I once again politely told him that we could no longer see each other. That's hilarious. I have zero interesting fetishes, but I would totally run with someone else's. I'd giggle though. They'd have to be okay with me cracking up the whole time. Story 3. My mom and I were traveling through Maine on a vacation for a few days. I had Tinder downloaded just for fun to see what guys were like out there. I matched with one, and he was so incredibly sweet and charming. We had the same sense of humor, and the connection and chemistry just felt so right. However, again, my mom and I were traveling in the same car together, and it was just the two of us, so it wasn't like I could ditch her to go on a date with some random guy. I told him this. We came up with an idea. We made up a story where he was an old friend from college that moved to Maine. My mom joined us on the date, which was pretty much just all of us going out for lunch at this cute soup place in Portland. He brought his dog along, and he was just the absolutely nicest person. He surprised my mom with a bag of potato donuts. We all had a genuinely great time, and it was surprisingly not awkward. He gave me a little envelope at the end of the date and told me to open it when I got home. When I opened it, it was little pins from different popular spots in Portland, and he typed up a word search puzzle made up of words related to how we met. It was probably the coolest date I've probably ever been on. When my mom and I left, she was like, "Why didn't you guys ever date?" I said that we had always just been friends, and she went on about how that's the kind of guy I should be with. He and I talked about meeting up again, but it never really panned out due to distance, and then he moved somewhere else. I still have a picture of the two of us and his dog from that lunch date, and we look cute in it. This is definitely weird, but in a good way. Refreshing since most of these stories are about weird and bad dates. I wonder if she's ever going to tell her mom what really happened. I feel like she needs to reach out to him again and start something for the sake of all of us. Story 4. My first ever Tinder date was with a guy from Romania. He was kind of cute, and I thought it was cool that he was from another country. We'd been texting for a week or so, and he seemed interesting. We met at a festival, and the first thing that I noticed was that he was about 8 inches shorter than I'd expected and didn't look much like he did in photos. Not a huge deal. A lot of people look different in photos. He also had way too much gross-smelling cologne. After hurrying through the festival, we sat and chatted for a while, and I told him about how I love children and animals. He proceeded to tell me that when he lived in Romania, he used to like to pick cats up by their tails and throw them on top of houses. He also said that he thought Americans needed to beat their kids more. After the conversation died down awkwardly, I made some excuse about needing to go home. To my surprise, he still wanted a second date. The next guy I met on Tinder ended up being the absolute best date I've ever been on, and we've been together for almost 3 years now. Well, that was definitely a weird date. Actually, that what makes Tinder so special. Story 5. I matched with a guy I went to high school with and who I always thought was really good looking and really cool. He played sports, well liked by everyone, etc. I probably hadn't seen him in 2 years at this point, but in his Tinder pictures he still looked the same, so we agreed to meet up for coffee. He comes in with greasy long hair, a beard, and actually looked homeless, and went on to tell me that he dropped out of college and has severe ADHD now. He couldn't focus on one thing and was fidgeting the entire date. Told me how he's now one with the earth, and at the end of it told me he was gay. I'm a girl. I seriously thought I was being fooled. Well, matching with someone from high school never ends well. But as awful as this date sounds, I hope he's doing better now. Story 6. I went to a local cafe with this girl I met at Tinder. Date went well until she flipped the crazy switch. She started inquiring when we would get an apartment together as well as have children. Also, how many children we would have. She ended up messaging every day, multiple times a day, wondering why I didn't want to talk to her. I ended up calling her and just telling her it wasn't going to work. She flipped and told me our relationship was built in lies and she was breaking up with me. Well, I was going to say she was probably trying to freak him out so he would leave. Then I read further that she kept calling and such. Definite crazy. Story 7. I noticed a cute French girl. In her bio, she mentioned there were some tadpoles in a pothole by her house that she wanted to rescue. I never know what to start off with, so I figured this would be a good conversation starter. I ended up bringing a slotted spoon, which is a spoon with holes in it, and we fished a few out of the pothole. Put them in a jar and brought them to a nearby pond. The rest of this first and last date was super awkward, but hey, at least we rescued some tadpoles. I think rescuing tadpoles from a pothole is my dream first date, to be honest. Story 8. Meet up with this guy at a local bar to get some beers and lunch. Date's going great so far. We're vibing pretty well, joking around and getting into conversations without the awkward small talk. Halfway through the date, we're talking about things we daydream about. I told him about my dreams of being a musician, then asked him about his eyes get really dark, as he says. I like to fantasize about the light leaving my enemy's eyes at my hands. At first I laugh because I think he's kidding, but he keeps a straight face. I clear my throat and don't know what to say. So all that comes out is, how do you do it? Without even a moment's hesitation, he answers, harpoon. Yeah, there wasn't a second date after that. Sometimes I just don't know what is wrong with people. I mean, why would you say that during a date?